Hello, and thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins, where I compare books with their movie adaptations. My name is Laura, and today I'm talking about the new movie Killer Heat, directed by Philippe Lacote, released in 2024. It is currently streaming on Amazon, and I'm comparing it with the book it is based on. It's a novella called The Jealousy Man, and it was published in 2021, and the author, he is Norwegian, and I looked up how to pronounce his name, and according to the website I looked it up on, his name is pronounced Jo Nesbø. And book and movie follow two twin brothers who find themselves in a dangerous love triangle on an isolated Greek island, and the investigation is given over to the Jealousy Man, a wounded detective. And I'm just going to get right into the details of the plot, which means we are getting into spoilers right away. And the book and movie, of course, have similarities, but there is enough different about the two of them that I'm going to go over their plots separately, beginning with the book. So Nick Bawley, he is the investigator, the quote-unquote jealousy man. He is sent to an island to investigate the disappearance of a man named Julian. Julian had been there to rock climb with a group of friends, including his identical twin brother, Franz. And Franz and Julian were seen getting in an argument the night before Julian goes missing. So when Nick talks to Franz about this, Franz admits that they were arguing over a woman. And so the story is, Franz had met a woman named Eleanor, and he was falling head over heels for her, and he was telling Julian all about her. However, Julian was getting jealous, and so he sets up a date with Eleanor, making her think that he is Franz. And so the two of them go out, and they just really connect, and they hit it off, and they have better chemistry than she had with Franz. And so that night, Julian had told Franz about this, how he secretly met up with Eleanor, and then he's like, I have since confessed to her, telling her the way I tricked her, but she forgave me, and the two of us are in love now, and we want to be together. And of course, Franz is very upset about this, so this is what they were arguing about. And Nick, he then talks to Eleanor to fact check this story, and we find out that Julian had lied about admitting to Eleanor the way he deceived her, because when Nick talks to Eleanor, she had no idea that the man she was in love with was actually Franz's twin brother, Julian. She thought she was in love with Franz, and the night that she met up with Julian, she just thought that Franz was suddenly showing her another side of himself, and it was a side she really liked. And so yeah, she had no idea that she had been going out with the twin brother. But once she realizes that it is not Franz she's in love with, but Julian, and she finds out that Julian has disappeared and is very suspicious, and it's assumed that Franz did something. And so she writes to Franz and she tells him how, I'm sorry, but Julian, he is my soulmate. He is the one I want to be with. And I pray to God that you have not killed him, and please just let us be together. And so Franz gets this letter, and then he calls up Nick and he tells him what the letter had said. And then he says something along the lines of how, because he was hurt by what Julian did, he says he locked him in a prison. And he says something like, I've locked him in a prison of his love, or something along those lines. And then he says something else implying that he is going to commit suicide. But it's a very vague, ambiguous phone call. However, they do end up finding Franz's body. He had shot himself, so he did commit suicide. And then they later find Julian tied up in a cave in the prison that Franz had put him in. And so at that point, the case is closed, right? And over time, Julian and Eleanor end up getting married. But throughout the story, we get flashbacks into Nick's past and how he became an expert on spotting jealousy. And near the end of the book, we get the full story about how he became a jealousy expert. And it is because in college, he started dating this girl, and then the two of them, along with his best friend, became obsessed with rock climbing. However, over time, the best friend and the girlfriend end up sleeping together. And Nick sees them having sex. However, he doesn't say anything to them about it. And so their next rock climbing outing, they don't know that he knows. And they, do their rock climb with the ropes. And then after they finished, Nick, he's then like, you know what? I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it free solo, which means climbing without the safety ropes. And so Nick does the climb free solo. And then once he's back down, then he says to the best friend, okay, now it's your turn to climb free solo. And so the friend does it, but the friend, what he doesn't know is that on one of the handholds, Nick put this greasy substance that looked like chalk. And so when the friend inevitably grabs this handhold, he slips and he falls to his death. And then from there, eventually Nick and the girlfriend end up breaking up, and they just kind of live their own lives after this. And so 5 years pass since Franz has died when Nick returns to this island to do some rock climbing with Julian. And he has stayed in contact with Julian and Eleanor through the years. And Eleanor admitted that early on in the marriage, Julian just felt different and he wasn't the same way he was on that night when they met. But she just chalks it up to him, dealing with the grief grief of what happened with his brother. And then by this point, they also have a child together. So now, despite her thoughts on like, oh, he isn't quite what I thought, at this point, they're in a committed relationship with a child. But while Julian and Nick are rock climbing, we find out that this is not Julian. This is Franz. And Franz, he had killed Julian the night Julian told him that he and Eleanor were in love. However, once he got the letter the next day from Eleanor being like, Julian is the one I want to be with, he then faked his suicide, had them find Franz's body, and he and Franz, they're identical twins, so their DNA is identical. So he wanted them to find Julian's body, that way they would think that Franz had committed suicide. And so after he did this, he then tied himself up in that cave to be found and assumed to be Julian, and then he took over Julian's life and married Eleanor. But after Nick confronts him, telling him that he knows the truth, Nick then reveals his own story about how he too committed murder out of jealousy. And so the book ends with the two of them being like, yeah, now we know each other's secrets, and we're gonna keep each other's secrets and not turn each other in, essentially. And Franz also, he says something to Nick, like he assumes that Nick came because he wanted to confess or get it off his chest or something. But Nick says like, no, that's not why I came back to confront you. I came back because I wanted to see what your life is like, because that's the life I could have gone down. Like I could have married my girlfriend after I killed my best friend, but I didn't. And so I just wanted to see what your life is like as a way to see what my life could have been like. And Franz also says that at this point, he can never confess to Eleanor. He's like, I'm in it too deep. Like I could never tell her the truth at this point. However, he does say that he suspects she already knows anyway. And that is the basic gist of the book. And to move on to the movie, so in the movie, a man named Leo dies while rock climbing free solo. And even though it is determined to be an accident, his sister-in-law Penelope calls Nick to investigate further. And she is married to Leo's identical twin brother, Ilias. However, she had originally known Leo. But when she met his brother Ilias, she realized that Ilias was the one for her. And so she ends up marrying Ilias, and the family that she marries into basically runs this Greek island they live on. And even though initially Penelope was in love with Ilias, over the years, she is now in this unhappy relationship with him because he keeps cheating on her. But also whenever she says that she wants to leave him, he threatens to either kill himself or kill her. So she is just in this unhappy, controlling relationship that she cannot escape. And over time, she eventually starts having an affair with Leo, the one who died at the start of the movie. But we end up finding out, similar to the book, that Leo is not the one who is dead, but that in fact, Leo killed Ilias because Leo was jealous of Ilias's life. Not only because he was married to Penelope, but also Ilias is the golden child and he is the one running the family company. And so he just wants to take Ilias's place. And so while Ilias is free solo climbing, Leo pushes him and he falls to his death. And then Leo takes over Ilias's life. And so Nick finds this out and he reveals it to the family. But after this discovery, he then later realizes that Penelope was in on it and she and Leo teamed up to kill Ilias. And so he returns to talk to Penelope and confront her about this. And we find out that, she was unhappy with Ilias. And so she and Leo hatched a plan to kill him. But then Leo wanted to stay with her. And so she just was yet again in another unhappy, controlling relationship. And so she secretly called Nick to investigate the death in hopes that he would find out the truth about Leo and she could therefore get out of the relationship. However, when Nick first breaks the news that this is not Ilias, this is actually Leo, the mom was there and the mom had preferred Ilias. And so when she finds out the truth, she ends up killing Leo. And so Penelope hadn't intended Leo to die. She just wanted him to be found out. But ultimately, when all is said and done, she still gets what she wants, which is freedom. And we also hear about Nick's past in the movie as well, but it's a little different because here he had a wife and child, but the wife was unhappy. However, Nick, he was kind of controlling, similar to Ilias to some extent. And so the wife, she ends up having an affair, which upsets Nick. And then he is like on the verge of killing her and or her lover. But ultimately he doesn't. And he walks away instead. But then he also walks away from his daughter. And so by the end of the movie, he calls up his ex-wife saying that he wants to see his daughter and have a relationship with her. So that right there basically gives you the rundown of what is different between book and movie. So the movie did make a number of changes to the original story. And I didn't love that they had the twins be from this rich, powerful, corrupt family, because in the book, they were just two normal guys. And I preferred that. Like, is it just me, or are other people also getting tired of our obsession with rich, powerful families? Like, we have so many movies and TV shows about families like that. And while I liked it well enough in The Perfect Couple, I don't need everything to be about a rich, powerful family. And then also rock climbing was a huge part of this book. The twins rock climb, Nick rock climbs, Nick's own personal story deals with rock climbing because he kills someone with rock climbing. And this was an aspect of the book that I did really enjoy, like just how much it revolved around rock climbing. Because I myself used to be a bit of a rock climber. I have not climbed in a gym in like 5 years. And I haven't climbed outdoors in like 11 years. So it's been a long time, but reading about it definitely brought back some fond memories. So I did like that part of the book. And I also feel like not many books talk about rock climbing in depth the way this one did. And the movie, of course, has rock climbing in it to some extent, considering that's how Elias dies, but it definitely was just a bigger part of the book. And then in the end of the movie, Nick decides that he is going to prioritize relationships, right? And not just live life with no ties. But this is different from the book because in the book, it's a bit more ambiguous. Like at this point, again, 5 years have passed since that original investigation. And at this point, he is no longer a cop. So he is kind of changing his life and he's trying to decide where he wants to go with his life after he talks to Julian, or Franz. It's not Julian. Julian is the one who died, but it's Franz pretending to be Julian. So after he talks to him, he's kind of trying to decide what he wants to do with his life. But it seems like he is going to continue living life like a stray dog, like no ties and just kind of following whatever scent interests him is what is implied with the ending of the book. But then also having the wife be in on the murder was a big change to the movie, but I didn't mind this because at least it was another twist that was added to keep you on your toes. In the book, I saw the twin reveal coming a mile away. It was so obvious that the twin was lying about who he was, right? And I'm sure movie watchers felt the same way, that it was just so clear. And so I appreciated that the movie at least tried to toss another twist in there to be surprising. The book, we have like the reveal, the twist about Nick having committed murder. But the book, it didn't feel as satisfying though. Like with everything tied up, the way it all ended, I didn't find it satisfying or surprising. But with the movie, even though they do add, another twist in there, I also noticed when I went back to get screenshots, I realized in that first scene when Elias is rock climbing and then he falls, we see that he is wearing a wedding ring. And so it seems like right there, we see that it is not Leo who dies, it is Elias because he's wearing a wedding ring. And so it seems like that's the movie's way of acknowledging that this is a reveal everybody will see coming. So they're just showing it right away in that shot with the wedding ring. At least that's how I took it, but let me know what you thought. Oh, and then another change from book to movie is that in the movie, Nick befriends this local guy who is trying to take down this rich, corrupt family. However, Nick gets this guy in a situation where he ends up being shot and killed, but this character was not in the book. But honestly, I wasn't crazy about either one of these. The book kept my interest, but that was partly because I kept expecting something more. So it was kind of like a simple favor where certain things were so obvious, but I was like, there has to be something more, right? Like the author has to have something else up their sleeve. But ultimately, I just ended up being disappointed. And the movie was also just okay. I'm glad they at least didn't turn this into a miniseries, right? That is so popular, is to just stretch it out into this 6, 7, 8 hour miniseries. So at least they didn't do that. But I will say, even though this movie was only an hour and a half, I definitely was not engaged the entire time. It did not captivate me. And it makes sense that this was straight to streaming because it's fine, but it's definitely nothing special. And when I finished the book, I was kind of disappointed with it, like I said. And so I went into the movie hoping that they would make changes that would improve the story and make it more interesting and exciting and better reveals. And while they did make some changes, at the end of the day, it wasn't as much of an improvement as I hoped it would be. And so when it comes to which one wins, book or movie, it is such a close call because both of them were just fine. And honestly, a year from now, 6 months from now, I will have forgotten a lot of details about both of these because they just weren't memorable enough. The only thing I'll remember probably is the obvious twin reveal because it was just so clear. Anyone who has seen enough detective mysteries will see that coming a mile away, like I said. But yeah, ultimately, I don't know. I guess I'll say the book wins, but it's a close call. And honestly, I could say either one because they're pretty equal. But if you have read the book and seen the movie, let me know which one you prefer. Maybe I'm being too harsh on both of them. I don't know, but I just wasn't super impressed. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know if you liked them. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.